Ted, Detroit, you're on the Wilkow Majority. Hello.
Hey, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
I'm good. Hey, let me ask you this, though. And I'm not going to say that all the Tea Party members are racist, because obviously they're not. But two things. Number one, most of them expound about how they want to get back to Ronald Reagan conservatism.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would say a lot of them. I mean, to some people, Reagan didn't do enough.
Well, let me ask you this: what did Ronald Reagan?
They want to return. They want to return to the Constitution as written.
What did Ronald Reagan do to the national deficit?
You mean, what did Tip O'Neill do to the national deficit?
What's that?
Where does revenue, where does the spending bill, where does it, hold on a second. Let's do this. Where does revenue raising begin at the federal government?
Well, it has to be approved by both the House and the Senate and the President.
No, let me give you Article 1, Section 7. All bills for raising revenue shall originate in the House of Representatives. All beginning of spending begins in the House of Representatives. Ronald Reagan didn't have a conservative Republican majority in the House and a conservative Republican majority in the Senate. The man did the best that he could while working along with Democrats.
Okay, so he couldn't veto any spending bill, is what you're telling me?
Well, of course he could. And of course the Democrats could have overridden a veto.
You're saying the Democrats could have overridden Ronald Reagan?
If they had the majority and the will to do it.
You can't override a veto unless you have 2/3, and you're not going to have 2/3.
Okay. Anyway, so Ronald Reagan ran up the deficit. Now let's move on. Let's
okay.
But let's get to the opposition. The Tea Party stands for the Constitution as written. Let's forget about Ronald Reagan for a second. What's the problem with the Constitution as it's written?
Okay. Well, the Constitution, if you have read it before, you know.
I have it right in front of me.
Which apparently Christine O'Donnell has never read.
No. Actually, sir, she was spot on about the First Amendment.
No, she was not.
Yeah, she was 100% right about the First Amendment, sir.
No, because he did not say separation of church and state. He quoted verbatim the First Amendment.
Right. And where do you find the power of the federal government to dictate the curriculum of a local school district in that statement?
Well, as interpreted by...
No. If you're quoting the Constitution, you aren't quoting interpretation, you're quoting the Constitution. So where do you, Ted from Detroit, find federal control of school curriculums at the local level in the First Amendment, which does not create a wall of separation between church and state?
Okay, well, let me ask you this.
Would you like me to read it to you while you're laughing at me?
I know exactly.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. I'd like you to tell me where you hear separation of church and state in that amendment.
It is saying, shall make no law establishing a religion. I think people...
Now, right. You've got that part right. Let's take the Christine O'Donnell view. Since we've moved from the Tea Party as racist into Ronald Reagan, now we're on to our third topic of debate. Where is Christine O'Donnell wrong, where she says that does not beget a federal power over a local high school curriculum?
Oh, God.
So here's the problem, Ted. You're frustrated by the fact that you want to claim that the Tea Party's racist, Ronald Reagan was responsible for the deficit, and Christine O'Donnell's an idiot. You just can't walk that one over me.
Why didn't she say what you're saying?
Did you listen to the rest of the audio from WDEL, the radio station they were debating on?
I watched the debate. She didn't say, I understand it says Congress shall make no law, but...
Well, I apologize that she is not as skilled a debater as I, as a radio host, am. I apologize on behalf of Christine O'Donnell that she's a human being with imperfections.
You cannot take the fact that the Constitution is a skeleton of a document. It doesn't even want Well, it was never created to dictate every fine detail of how it was to be interpreted.
No, it's not to be interpreted. It is the framework of the federal government, its powers and its forbiddances, and that's it. If you were protesting in Detroit, sir, and a Detroit police officer arrested you because he just didn't like what you were saying, you'd be okay with that, right?
Let me ask you this.
No, I'm asking you a serious question, sir. Can the Detroit police... Ted, you've had all the time in the world to call in on one topic and change it to three. I'm asking you a serious question here. Would you be offended or upset or believe that your rights have been violated if a Detroit police officer stopped you on the street and arrested you because he didn't like what you were saying in the public square?
If I was within my right to say it in the public square, yeah, I would be.
Well, what guarantees that right?
What guarantees the right of free speech?
Yeah.
Well,
that skeleton you just referred to, that skeleton that doesn't apply because it was written so long ago. I mean, clearly the founding fathers couldn't have envisioned in the year 2010 that Ted from Detroit might stand in front of City Hall and want to petition his government for redress of grievances. What we've got to do is allow the police officer to decide that, right?
You do not have the government can still dictate time and place of free speech. So you're wrong.
I didn't point that to you. Can a police officer decide that what you are saying is worthy of arrest if you're simply petitioning the government for redress of grievances?
Well, what I just told you was that you don't have free speech.
But you just talked about this willy-nilly reinterpretation of the Constitution. So it would be no offense to you that a police officer may just decide that what you're saying in front of City Hall in Detroit, Michigan is an offense.
I just told you that the government can dictate time and...
No, they can organize. They can dictate whether or not you have an organized protest, meaning you plan to bring massive amounts of people to City Park, but they can't stop you, Ted, from standing in front of City Hall and holding a protest sign saying, "I petition my government for redress of grievances."
Where does it say in the First Amendment it has to be an organized group where you have a...
Okay, sir.
See? You don't...
So there is no Constitution then. So then we have no rights.
You don't like the fact that that all of it has been interpreted.
Sir, you have the right to assemble. It's right there in the First Amendment. You have the right to assemble and petition your government for redress of grievances. The right to assembly is a constitutional freedom.
But they can still dictate terms of that assembly.
Okay.
That's not in the Constitution.
Okay. So there is no Constitution, and you have no rights, and the government can do whatever it wants to you. Well, what stops the government from doing whatever it wants to you?
The Constitution is whatever 5 Supreme Court judges say it is.
That's not true, sir. Do you find that in Article 3?
It's always been that way.
No, it's not always been that way, sir. Find for me in Article 3 where you find this judicial authority. This is the problem, sir. You have no idea what you're talking about, but you have a passion for your ignorant view of the Constitution. You honestly believe that like the peasant serf that you're amounting yourself to, that you have no rights in this country. If that's the life that you want to live, have at it, sir. Goodbye. 1-866-95-PATRIOT. I'm going to let you in on a little secret about this program. Whenever an opposition caller gives me that under the breath chuckle, like I'm somehow beneath them, I know I've won the argument. I absolutely positively know that I've won the argument. With somebody who clearly has never sat down and read the Constitution, to which they're telling me is but a skeleton. It's but a skeleton. And the problem with that oaf is that he was willing to offer up his First Amendment rights to make a point. The majority of progressives, as dumb as they are, would reject the notion that the police department can simply arrest you for speaking your mind. My God, do you see what imbeciles this president is growing in this country? No wonder Detroit's such a wasteland.